What's up, guys? Welcome back to another day in the life of a postal lady. So, you don't want to fight. You really don't want to fight. You really just want to lay there and let them walk all over you because you really just don't want to fight. And I want us to look at a really big situation here that I think a lot of people are not looking at, and it could be the reason why they don't want to fight. Overtime. How much overtime do you think is going to be there if we don't hardly have the mail? We don't got the packages. How much overtime do you think is still going to be there? A lot of the Postal Service employees, they work off of overtime. They live off of overtime. Pardon me. They live off of overtime. Nothing but straight overtime. Half of them checks that you see, that ain't coming from a regular paycheck. That ain't coming from a straight 40 hours. That's coming from maybe 80, maybe 100. Yeah, we got some carriers out here breaking their backs. We got some carriers out here going the extra mile. We got some carriers out here carrying the load that you like, whoa, I don't even know how you human doing that. Yeah, we got some carriers out there doing that. And they living off of that overtime. But let us sit back and think about it, because there's a lot of people that didn't want to fight in this contract. They don't want to fight when it comes down to the tentative agreement. They're like, oh, well, ain't nothing good gonna come from it. I don't want to fight for it. But you need to fight. Because if they take the overtime away from you and you're stuck with that 40 hours a week, listen to me, that paycheck ain't gonna look as good as you're used to. And I know that from CCAs in my office crying over the fact that their paycheck dropped substantially because they weren't receiving any overtime. Now, that's a CCA getting overtime, which is a city carrier assistant. Let's look at the fact of a regular getting overtime, which they get substantially way more in overtime than a CCA could ever get. You living off that overtime, but you're not ready to fight. And if they just so happen to decide to take that overtime away from you and you're stuck with nothing but your 40 hours, are you going to think then that little bit of raise that they were willing to give you is going to be enough with just that 40 that you just so happen that that's what you're supposed to get? Not all that extra overtime that you're used to getting. And that's the thing. We're not looking at all the factors. That's a major factor. If they strip away the overtime, then what does your paycheck look like? And I'm going to tell you from experience, it ain't nothing. It's not enough to make you want to get up and do extra. It's not enough to make you want to get up and jump whenever they say jump, after they keep piling more stuff on top of you and telling you that you're not doing enough when you're doing the hard work and they're sitting behind a desk looking at you do the hard work. It's not enough. It's not enough when all the other crafts do less than you do, but get paid way more than you do. That 40 ain't enough. Let's be humble and bring ourselves back to that 40 hours a week that you are only guaranteed as a regular employee. You ain't guaranteed no overtime. It's people bringing in overtime and still can't live. I'm telling you, you got to let that fear go. You got to stop being scary. And you got to tell yourself, look here, when I look at all the factors, that ain't it. And I need to fight for my rights. I need to fight. That's why you fighting. Not because this contract is almost over with, but because the next one will be a mess show if we don't get the first one taken care of. See, I have a lot of people that have come to me and stated, oh, well, what does it matter? This one is almost over with. We don't really have, we're fighting for what? You're fighting for the next contract as well. You ain't just fighting for this one. This one is almost over with. But if you don't set a bar in this contract, how do you expect to get anything in the next one? That's why we're expecting more, because the last contract gave us more, and now we're expecting more on top of that. We're not expecting a decrease. We're expecting more, because that's what you go to the table for whenever your people say enough is enough. I need more. So that's why you fighting. That's why you can't give up. That's why you must continue on, because like I said, that overtime ain't guaranteed. You hear me? Peace out.